maisha na nagunatsa
As relations between Cuba and the United States deteriorated rapidly after the Cuban Revolution, the U.S. resulting expropriation and nationalization of businesses. U.S. citizens are barred from traveling to Cuba without government permission under a U.S. trade embargo imposed half a century ago that can only be lifted by Congress. The tourist industry declined to record low levels within 2 years of Castro's accession to power. In the years following Cuba's 1959 revolution, when Fidel Castro took power, the highest known number of U.S. visitors peaked at 70,000 under President Bill Clinton, but dropped to an average of 30,000 in the last term of President George W. Bush.
I'm just want to ask you, have you been to Cuba before?
I have been to Cuba. I went to Cuba last year during my spring semester.
How was it? Do you like it?
I loved Cuba. Cuba's kind of it's like a time machine or a time capsule. It's exactly, interestingly, exactly how you see it in The Godfather 2, and it hasn't changed much since. It's literally a time capsule of the revolution.
Do you think the process of getting permission to Cuba was hard for United States citizens in general?
So generally, it's extremely difficult for Americans to obtain any kind of access, at least to go over. Largely, the issue remains political, like a lot of things that are going on between the United States and Cuba. But there are other instances, for example. So, when we went there, we did see, for example, youth baseball teams, American students that were actually traveling there. But it's also like, it's a special visa of some kind that, some kind of special authority that allows for that to happen. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult.
To allow Cuban Americans travel to Cuba freely, President Obama authorized licenses for purposeful travel to more than 250 Cuba travel agents and allowed more airports to provide charter service between the two countries. The program, which began in 2011, requires annual renewal of permission to bring groups to Cuba, allows for educational and cultural travel. The regulations require detailed itineraries of each traveling group. This is a remarkable milestone for the two countries.
Our travel man, Peter Greenberg, looked like a great trip.
It was, but I have to tell you, unfortunately, it's not cheap right now. A weekend trip with Inside Cuba, the group that we went with, will set you back about $1,800. That's the bad news. The good news is the law and supply and demand is kicking in. Would you believe right now, flights from Florida to Cuba, over 300 a month now. Delta Airlines has just announced new charter service. American Eagle is now servicing this as a charter flight. And with more flights, those rates will come down.
But go ahead.
Any downtime at all on the vacation?
You bet.
Ever since then, tourism traveling to Cuba has been increased dramatically. Over 98,000 U.S. citizens visited Cuba in 2011, up from 73,500 in 2011, and twice the number compared with 5 years ago. According to an online report by the National Statistics Office, the numbers do not include more than 350,000 Cuban Americans estimated by travel agents and U.S. diplomats visited the island last year. Because Cuba considers them nationals, they are not listed in its tourism statistics.
It's a little difficult. It's not easy. We don't get to travel directly to Cuba. We came through Cancun, through Mexico, and I don't think we're officially supposed to be here. But we're on a cultural exchange because we're all avid photographers.
If the embargo is lifted, the tourism is estimated to increase by 1.5 million, which could bring $2 billion to Cuba, totaling up to 2% of Cuba's GDP. In order to lift the embargo, there are some changes Cuba needs to make.
If the U.S. and Cuba enter into a trade agreement, one of the hopes is that Cuba would be an attractive tourist destination for U.S. tourists. So if you're going to enter into an agreement on the expectation that tourists will come, you'd like to do that at a time when U.S. Consumers are feeling robust. They are feeling like they have extra money to spend, and so that they can go to this new tourist destination in Cuba. So of course now is a better time than say 3 or 4 years ago when U.S. consumers were really kind of sick because of the recession. So U.S. consumers do seem to be in better situation right now and do seem to be interested in going, being a tourist in Cuba. Now, one of the challenges Cuba faces is, let's suppose that U.S. tourists really want to go to Cuba. Will they have the necessary infrastructure, hotels and all that kind of stuff that you need to make tourists happy? Will they be able to satisfy that demand?
Besides political changes that the U.S. is looking for, Cuba could lower the barrier to tourism. Also, Cuba could test some reforms that the U.S. is asking for. One example is privatization, which is easy to start from the tourism industry. Particularly, Cuba could allow U.S. FDI to expand Cuba's infrastructures to serve the increase.
Another program we recommend Cuba to perform is the transfer of management skills through hotel administration contracts and the creation of mixed enterprise in hotels. Tourism itself is a large importer. Thus, Cuba should increase national production of goods and develop hotel-related infrastructures, particularly in areas such as construction of theme parks, golf courses, and marinas. Cuba is becoming part of the Caribbean tourism circuit, so its investment programs should be directed at activities that interest international hotel chains. Tourism has been acting as the engine for the Cuban economy and will be the key to lift the embargo between Cuba and the U.S. It is crucial that plans for expansion of the tourism sectors include policies that not only link tourism activities but also in the rest of the areas that form an integral part of the development of Cuba tourism industry.
Cuba has so much to offer in terms of culture, history, and issues of mutual concern, healthcare, education, and the environment, and students, professionals, people of faith are curious, said Colin Laverty, head of travel provider Cuba Educational Travel.
Cuba, ven y ven para mi Cuba, por tu mochila.